All right, good day, everybody. Steve Prziborowski here. Welcome to episode 52 of Reach for the Firefighter Badge. Episode 52 is going to build upon 51, more about the fire department hiring process and the background investigation, specifically how to best prepare for your next background investigation. It's not if, but it's when you're going to have a background investigation. So the previous episode talked about the basics. Now we're going to talk about how to prepare. So let's get going. As always, my two websites have a lot of great free information on there to benefit anybody who wants to be the best they can be. Code3firetraining.com, ChabotFire.com. Also, 2 of the 3 books I've had published are available off both websites. Great resources for anyone that wants to become a firefighter and be the best they can be. All right, how can I best prepare for my background evaluation, background investigation, background whatever, examination, but your background, where they're going to ask you to fill out 15, 20, 25 pages of every detail of your life. How do you best prepare? Well, let's talk about that. So as you get going, I've shared in the previous episode and many other episodes, go to ChabotFire.com, my website, click the free stuff link, scroll down, and you'll see sample background packet. It's a Word document. You can fill it out. You know what? I encourage you to check that out in advance so you know what to expect. Now, it's not going to probably be the same form as what your department is giving you to complete, but it's probably going to be pretty darn close. But start looking for the things they're asking for, because some of those things, it's going to take you a while to get. Maybe transcripts from colleges, maybe figure out old work history information, whatever. So check back and do that, because you'll be light years ahead by doing that. I encourage you to secure any attachments. Military, if you have any military time, first of all, thank you very much for your service. Excuse me. Number 2, they're going to ask you for your paperwork, your papers that you're honorably discharged, that there was no court martials against you, and all those other things. So any military paperwork, get that ready. College transcripts to validate what you're saying that you've done. So if you've been to a lot of colleges, start now. Thankfully, on the internet, you can get, obviously, a lot of that stuff purchased off the internet. Copies of certifications or licenses. So if you're one of those individuals like myself that took time and spent money to get a lot of certifications to help prepare me to be the best firefighter I could, I had a lot of paperwork. Well, if you're going to put it on the application and you're going to put it on the background investigation, that because they're going to ask you, what certifications do you have, what licenses, not just your driver's license, but your EMT, your paramedic, state fire marshal certifications. They're going to want to see copies of them. So I encourage you to have those copies available. Save those securely so they're like PDF documents that you can attach, because you'll either be completing this in person, submitting it online, depending on what their needs are. So have copies available. Also, maybe medical records. Sometimes they ask for your immunization records. Obviously, the department's going to put you through a medical evaluation or medical examination that we just talked about in episode 50, but they may ask for certain, like I said, immunization records. So hopefully you kept those from years back. If you haven't done so already, here's something that I wish I would have done years before I was told to do so. But if you haven't done so already, grab your 3 credit reports, because by law, and again, I'm not an expert attorney. I don't practice or play an attorney. I don't give legal advice, just hopefully best suggestions. You can do so once a year, meaning any human being is able to go to each of the 3 major companies, Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion, and get one a year for free at annualcreditreport.com. Now, be very careful, because they may want to charge you. And there's a lot of websites, they all look the same. So you really got to do your homework to make sure you're doing the right thing, and obviously not giving away any confidential information that you're going to pay for later on. But from the best research I can find, if you go to annualcreditreport.com, you should have access to one of the free reports per year from each of these companies. Again, do your homework. That's my disclaimer. If something bad goes wrong, sorry, I'm not giving you legal advice. I'm just giving you advice that was given to me, right or wrong. So, but you'd rather find out ahead. And even, the department's going to ask for that as part of your background investigation. Granted, they'll do it on their own. They'll find those reports, but if nothing else, for your own peace of mind, it's good to check that stuff anyway, even if you don't want to be a firefighter, because that's how sometimes people find out that there's fraudulent activity going on, or there's identity theft, because they wouldn't have known it until they check their credit history. It's like, what? So just good best practice for anybody. Also, how to prepare. I wouldn't go as far as saying people fail backgrounds. Um, a lot of times, though, people don't get selected because of what's on their background, but sometimes it's not necessarily what's on it, it's what's not on it. Because a background investigator is trained to look for facts, to verify facts and figures. They're looking for honesty, and I think that's the key. Usually when you submit the background paperwork, the 15, 20, 25 pages, usually there's a subsequent meeting with the background investigator because he or she will sit down and say, okay, I need to ask you some more questions. On this page, you put this. Explain it a little bit more, because sometimes there's a lot of gray area. I mean, they usually give you areas to explain, but sometimes it's nice to actually share your side of the story. But the key is be honest, be factual, because as soon as they find one thing that may be considered unfactual or dishonest, it's game on. And I'll use an example like on work history. Let's say you worked at CVS drugstore and you got hired September 30th. So you got hired September 30th of last year for CVS drugstore. Now, this is where one thing I think comes up sometimes where people put, well, they should put September 30th because it'll ask you date of hires, September 30th. Well, I've seen some people put just 10/1. Well, it's just 9/30, 10/1. They're day off. No, they're not. They are day off, but which was it? Because here's the thing. When that background investigator calls CVS and asks them the basic questions, and CVS can't really give away that much by law. All they can really do is, yep, Steve Prziborowski worked there. Yep, this was his salary, or no, this was not his salary. Here's his title. Here was his duties. And here's the date he was employed. Here's his start date. Here's his end date. And if there's any discrepancy, the background investigator will probably bring it up in the meeting afterward, but maybe they don't. And but if they see that one discrepancy that you put down September 30th, but then CVS says October 1st or vice versa, then it's almost like, well, okay, are you hiding something? But even if you're not hiding something, that shows other issues. It shows you don't have an attention to detail, you're not thorough, you're not complete, you don't check your work, because you should be checking your application along with your resume as well as the actual facts. But a lot of people don't. And then maybe it shows that you're unprofessional, all things that firefighters need to be. So dot the I's, cross the T's. Talked about being thorough. If there's a blank there, it probably needs to be filled out. Now, obviously, if there's like 10 blanks for list every parking ticket you've ever held and you haven't had any, then just make sure you put NA or N/A and draw a line through it, or type a line through it if it's an online document. If you have any questions, contact the background investigator, because usually the background investigator is the one that sends you the file to fill out, the Word doc, the PDF, whatever, and says, hey, if you have any questions, reach out. And you should. So it's better to ask the question than later. Don't worry about it. They're trained professionals, but you don't want to get caught with your pants down, as they say later on, finding out maybe there's a discrepancy here, because once a background investigator finds one little thing that maybe seems a little shady, because are you hiding something? Then it's like they start looking at everything. And then, of course, next thing you know, you're digging yourself in a hole. Be prepared to explain some things to the background investigator, or maybe the fire department. Sometimes in the past, I remember our fire chief, after he got the backgrounds, the psychological evaluations, the medical exams, I remember our fire chief sometimes just had a couple questions. He still hired the people, but I remember him when I was the administrative deputy chief, he's like, Steve, I've got 3 candidates coming in. We need to ask them some questions. And, they walk in the room, it's like, hey, chief, what's up? They've already had the chief's interview. They've already had everything. And all they've got is everything but a final job offer. They got the conditional, but it's just a final. The chief just goes, hey, you know what? There's one thing that came up in your background. I just want to ask you some questions and let you explain it, because I'm just, basically he was concerned that is the behavior that was on there going to still happen if he offers you a job. And the way the candidates presented it was very professional. Chief, that was a mistake that I made, umpteen years ago. Look what I've done since then. I'll do my best to not repeat that behavior. I recognize that that's not appropriate for a firefighter. I was young and stupid, and I'm not making up an excuse. People came in, they explained themselves, took responsibility, were professional, and the chief's like, you know what? I'm good to go. So I think that's really the key to think about is, anything you put down is going to get looked at. So make sure it's as factual as possible, honest as possible, and be prepared to, answer it. So talk a little bit about negatives. You're not perfect. Nobody's perfect. I've yet to meet a perfect person. So we've all got some skeletons in our closet. It's okay. The key is don't hide the skeletons. Throw them out as soon as possible. You know what? The last thing you want to have is the background investigator or even the fire chief going, well, you didn't put it on your background investigation, but when we did the report and we called your employer, you said this, but then your employer said that. And then we ran your DMV report. This came out, but it's not listed here. Well, shit, chief, I'm sorry, my bad. I forgot to put it on there, you know, and you're stressing out and nervous. We don't need that. But here's the key to negatives. Again, we all have negative situations in our life that we're probably not proud of, some worse than others. One of our background investigators in the past, I remember he told me this because I asked him, I go, have you seen any perfect people? And of course, he's like, no, I haven't, Steve. He goes, my philosophy on bad stuff, you know, whether you got arrested, whether you got excessive speeding tickets, whether you use drugs, whether whatever. He goes, the things that help prove me, the background investigator, as well as a fire chief, is time. Meaning the longer it's been, the better it is. Meaning something that happened 6 months ago versus 6 years ago. 6 months ago, you're trying to tell me that you're young and immature 6 months ago? Well, that's not a long time versus, hey, 6 years ago or 20 years ago, yeah, I was 18 years old, I was stupid, now I'm 28, 38, whatever. Time, the longer it's been helps things. So if you have done something that you're not proud of, that you think may be a negative, just realize that it may take some time before you get a job offer, but don't stop now. Keep going. Let the department disqualify you. Don't disqualify yourself. Think about that. Don't disqualify yourself. Let the department disqualify you. It's not a bad thing. If the chief, I mean, you may have the chief say, you know what? You had a DUI like 2.5 years ago, but you know what? Our rules say DUIs can't be within the last 3 years. So you know what? I'm going to pass right now. But you know what? Come back again the next time. And you know what? If you can make it through the written test, the oral interview, the chief's interview, and get to a background, and then it's been like 3.5 years, not 2.5 since your DUI, and you've proven to me that you're pretty rock solid in the last year since this interview today, I'll definitely give you an opportunity. And I've heard of many stories like that. But again, don't take it personal. Just prove them wrong in a positive way. You know, also besides time, what you've done since then to prove that you won't make the same mistake twice. Let's say you got arrested for DUI. So you got a DUI on your record. Well, obviously the longer it's been, the better. But what have you done since then? I mean, if you're one of those people, like I remember when I was working at Long's Drugs, which is now CVS. I remember one of the guys had like 4 DUIs, like in the course of like 4 years, and he lost his license. And it's just like, dude, you got a problem, you know. But in today's world, there's a lot of things you can do. You get 1 DUI, I mean, you better get your act together, whether it's going to Alcohol Anonymous or some other program to help you. And then of course, well, I don't have a drinking problem. You know what? I don't care if you have a drinking problem or not. Whether you believe it or not, if you want to prove to that employer that you're trying to make a wrong better, go through the 12-step program or whatever program it is. Make that commitment that maybe you're not even going to drink at all. Maybe it's that important to you where you say, you know what, I'm not even going to drink at all. Or I'm going to, if I do drink, I'm going to make sure I have a ride share or a designated driver, something, you know. And you probably need to be more qualified than the next person, meaning if you don't have a lot on your resume, again, we don't hire resumes, we hire people, but if you have a lot of things in your background, maybe like arrests or other things, you better have a damn good spotless resume with a tons of stuff, like you're bilingual, you're paramedic, maybe you come with, you know, a master's degree, I don't know what it is, some specialty, some expertise that makes you better than the next one, because why would a fire chief hire you if you have that much baggage, especially since departments are usually self-insured. And they obviously, well, I'm not an engineer, I'll just be a firefighter. Well, yeah, engineer is usually a promoted rank, but in a lot of departments, even firefighters have to know how to drive. Even if it's not the engineer position, they may have to act up, or they may have to just drive a department vehicle. You know, you're checking out the chief's buggy, because if there's a battalion chief's buggy at a station, which there usually is, usually one of the firefighters checks out the battalion chief buggy after they check out their own. So, well, I'm just driving it, you know, 20 feet in front of the station and backing it in, you're still driving it. So you got to have your act together in that sense. But again, prove them that you're not going to make the mistake twice. And also another big key, taking personal responsibility, taking ownership, taking accountability for your actions or your non-actions. again, we're all human. We all make mistakes. And in all honesty, I'm glad when I've made mistakes, not at the time, because sometimes they suck and they hurt, but after the fact, because usually when we make mistakes, we have an awesome opportunity to hopefully learn from that mistake, never do it again. But again, so much of it is you taking responsibility versus being the one that, yeah, I got a DUI, but I think it's bullshit, because I think the cops, I think it was entrapment, I tried to sue the department, because you know what, I was not a point, they said I was point, 0.08 is the legal limit. They said I was like 0.12 over the legal limit. No, I think that's a crock, I was 0.07, my breathalyzer in the car said 0.07, I wasn't 0.08. So that was sort of, they just railroaded me because of whatever reason. Because okay, right there, if you haven't figured out the problem by now, the problem is looking in the mirror, because again, we need you to sincerely raise your hand and be able to say, hey, Chief, I screwed up. I made a royal mistake. And again, if you've made 4 DUIs, yeah, Chief, I made 4 mistakes over the course of 4 years. Well, dude, you know what? It's going to probably take you a hell of a lot longer to get hired. But as I've mentioned before, there's a department out there for everybody. And I've known some people with some shitty records get hired. I mean, I've been amazed at people, it's like, how did they hire that person who was arrested for this? Hey, you know what? Stranger things have happened, because here's the thing. You may go, well, how did that person, they were arrested and they had like maybe a terrible driving record. How did they get hired? Well, first of all, they were probably honest, meaning they listed everything on their application, their background. So when the chief asked them, hey, so you're arrested for this and blah, 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 they didn't deny it. They didn't lie about it. They came clear. Yeah, Chief, I was arrested. I made a mistake. This is what happened. Obviously, Chief, you're going to find out from the background investigator, but here's my side of the story, which hopefully matches what the story is from the background investigator. And you know what? I wish it never would have happened, but it taught me a valuable lesson. And since that point, blah, blah, blah. So the key to that person is it's not what they did. It's that they were honest about it, that they took responsibility for it, that it was probably a long time away, that they're willing to convince the chief, you know what, Chief, take a chance on me. Because there's something to be said about giving people sometimes second chances, especially in that capacity. Because there's also something to be said about that person. When you hear somebody going, well, I've never made a mistake in my life, or I've never, done anything that I've been in trouble for, and that's a good thing, don't get me wrong, but sometimes getting in trouble helps you learn and become a better human being. I mean, I'm not saying everyone learns from their mistakes, but many do. So I don't know. Again, try to have a clean background as possible. But if you have had issues, just be upfront about them, be honest about them, and, take your lumps. Realize some departments may pass on you. So in the next episode, number 53, we're going to build upon the background investigation, and then we're going to discuss some questions that your family members, your friends, and your references may be asked so you can help prepare them. All right, until the next time, thank you very much for the gift of your time. I sincerely appreciate your time, you taking the time to watch these, whether it's watching them for 2 seconds and hitting delete or whatever. But I hope you're getting some value out of these, because I really do these from the heart. I don't get paid for these. I really have a passion for sharing information from my experiences over the years, hoping they help you. And if you can learn at least maybe one thing from each of these episodes, I've done my job. I mean, yeah, one thing from each episode, which I hope is the case, you're doing well. So until next time, everybody, take care, everybody, be safe, and we'll see you soon.